The year is 1932, and the Australian Army is gearing up for an extraordinary battle. The enemy? Not a foreign invader, but a horde of over 20,000 rampaging emus. Yes, you heard that right, emus. What follows is one of the most bizarre and captivating episodes in military history, the Great Emu War. Our story begins in the early 1930s, a period marked by economic depression and hardship. Farmers in Western Australia were struggling to make ends meet, having been promised land to cultivate wheat and other crops. However, as prices plummeted and resources dwindled, another unforeseen disaster struck: an invasion of emus. These large, flightless birds, standing over 6 feet tall, had migrated from the interior to the coast in search of food and water. The emus found the wheat fields to be an abundant food source, much to the dismay of the farmers. The sight of thousands of emus trampling through fields, devouring crops, and causing chaos was overwhelming. The farmers' livelihoods were at stake, and they were desperate for a solution. The economic context of the early 1930s was dire. The Great Depression had left many Australians in poverty, and farmers were particularly hard hit. The government had encouraged veterans of World War I to take up farming in Western Australia, promising them land and support. However, the promised subsidies failed to materialize, leaving farmers struggling to cope with falling wheat prices and rising costs. In this already challenging environment, the emus' arrival was catastrophic. These birds, driven by instinct and hunger, descended upon the farmland in droves. They were not just a few scattered groups, but a relentless, coordinated force, moving together and destroying everything in their path. The emus would march into a field and devour entire crops, leaving the farmers with nothing. The farmers tried various methods to scare off the emus, from fencing to scarecrows, but nothing seemed to work. The emus were too numerous, too persistent, and too hungry. They were drawn to the wheat fields like magnets, and their sheer numbers overwhelmed any defenses the farmers could muster. In a state of desperation, the farmers turned to the government for help. The government's response was both swift and unorthodox. The Minister of Defense, Sir George Pearce, decided that military intervention was necessary. He believed that the best way to deal with the emu menace was to send in the army. This decision was met with a mix of relief and skepticism by the farmers, who were hopeful but uncertain about what military involvement would entail. Major G.P.W. Meredith of the 7th Heavy Battery of the Royal Australian Artillery was put in charge of the operation. He was to lead a small contingent of soldiers armed with Lewis machine guns and 10,000 rounds of ammunition. The plan was simple: use military might to combat the avian menace. On paper, it seemed like a straightforward mission. The emus, though large and numerous, were just birds. The soldiers were well trained and well armed, and it was expected that they would quickly bring the situation under control. However, as the troops would soon discover, the emus were far more formidable opponents than anyone had anticipated. The operation began in early November 1932. Major Meredith and his men set out to confront the emus near Campion, where the birds had been causing the most damage. The soldiers, confident in their abilities, expected a swift victory. However, the first encounter did not go as planned. As the soldiers approached, the emus scattered into small groups, making it difficult to target them effectively. The emus' agility and speed were surprising. Despite their size, they could run up to 50-kilometer-h and change direction rapidly. The soldiers found it almost impossible to get a clear shot. The first day ended with few successes. The soldiers managed to kill only a handful of emus, and the majority of the birds escaped unscathed. This initial failure was a blow to the troops' morale, but Major Meredith was determined to press on. He adjusted their tactics, deciding to use trucks to chase down the emus. This new strategy, however, proved to be equally ineffective and even more comical. The rough terrain made it difficult for the trucks to keep up with the emus, and the birds continued to outmaneuver the soldiers. At one point, a soldier attempted to fire from the back of a moving truck, only for the truck to hit a bump, causing the soldier to miss entirely. Day after day, the soldiers engaged in skirmishes with the emus, but each encounter ended in frustration. The emus seemed to have an uncanny ability to avoid gunfire. The soldiers would line up their shots, only for the emus to scatter and disappear into the bush. The birds were natural survivors, well adapted to their environment, and their erratic movements made them elusive targets. As the campaign dragged on, the media began to take notice. Reports of the war against the emus started to appear in newspapers, and the story quickly became a source of national and international amusement. The idea of the mighty Australian Army being outsmarted by a flock of birds was too absurd not to capture the public's imagination. Cartoons and satirical articles mocked the situation, portraying the emus as cunning adversaries and the soldiers as bumbling buffoons. Headlines such as "Emus outwit Army" and "Emus mock military" made the rounds, adding to the soldiers' embarrassment. Despite the ridicule, the reality on the ground was grim. The emus continued to devastate the crops, and the farmers' plight grew more desperate. By the end end of the campaign, it was clear that the emus had won. The soldiers had fired thousands of rounds, but had only managed to kill a small fraction of the emu population. Major Meredith himself admitted, "If we had a military division with the bullet-carrying capacity of these birds, it would face any army in the world." The Great Emu War was officially called off in early December 1932, a mere month after it had begun. The soldiers withdrew, having been thoroughly defeated by their feathered foes. The emus, it seemed, were an unbeatable force. The defeat was not only a tactical failure, but also a blow to the morale of the Australian military. It highlighted the limitations of military power when faced with unconventional challenges. The soldiers, who had been trained to fight human enemies, were ill-equipped to deal with the unpredictable and agile emus. The campaign had cost a significant amount of resources, and yet it had achieved almost nothing. In the wake of the Great Emu War, the government had to reconsider its approach. The farmers were still in dire need of assistance, and the emu problem remained unresolved. Eventually, the government provided financial aid to the farmers and invested in better fencing to protect the crops. The farmers also experimented with other methods, such as poison and hunting, to control the emu population. Despite these efforts, the emus continued to be a challenge. They were resilient creatures, and their numbers remained high. However, over time, the farmers learned to coexist with the emus, adapting their farming practices to minimize the damage caused by the birds. The legacy of the Great Emu War lives on as one of the most peculiar and fascinating episodes in military history. It serves as a reminder of the unpredictability of nature and the limits of human intervention. The story has been retold in countless articles, books, and documentaries, each time highlighting the absurdity and humor of the situation. In popular culture, the Great Emu War has achieved a kind of legendary status. It is often cited as an example of a military blunder, but also as a testament to the resilience and adaptability of wildlife. The emus, having survived the onslaught, continued to thrive in the Australian outback, undeterred by their brush with human weaponry. For the people of Australia, the Great Emu War is a source of both pride and amusement. It is a story that captures the unique character of the Australian landscape and the indomitable spirit of its wildlife. It is a tale of underdogs triumphing against the odds, even if those underdogs happen to be large, flightless birds. The story of the Great Emu War has also inspired a variety of artistic interpretations. From paintings and sculptures to plays and films, artists have found in this bizarre conflict a rich source of material. The war has been depicted in comedies, dramas, and even musicals, each exploring different aspects of the event and its impact on Australian society. In schools, the Great Emu War is often used as a case study in history and social studies classes. It provides a unique way to engage students with the complexities of human-animal interactions, the challenges of agriculture, and the unexpected consequences of well-intentioned policies. The Great Emu War isn't just an amusing anecdote, it's a reflection of our ongoing struggle to coexist with the natural world. In today's context, it can be seen as a precursor to the many environmental battles we face now. It illustrates the futility of trying to dominate nature with brute force, underscoring the necessity for respect and understanding of the ecosystems we live in. In our pursuit of progress and expansion, stories like the Great Emu War caution us against underestimating the complexity and resilience of natural systems. They encourage a more harmonious approach to development, one that considers the needs and behaviors of all living beings sharing this planet. To add a personal touch to our story, let's delve into the diaries and letters of the soldiers and farmers involved in the Great Emu War. Major GPW Meredith's reports, filled with a mix of frustration and dark humor, provide a window into the human side of this conflict. These first-hand accounts highlight the soldiers' initial confidence and subsequent bewilderment as they faced their unexpected nemesis. One farmer wrote about watching the soldiers' efforts with a mix of hope and skepticism, describing the scene as both the most hilarious and desperate sight I've ever witnessed. These personal narratives bring the historical events to life, adding depth and emotion to our understanding of this peculiar war. Imagine the Great Emu War from the emu's perspective. To them, the wheat fields were a newly discovered paradise, an abundant source of food during a time of drought. The sudden appearance of soldiers with loud, terrifying weapons must have been a confusing and frightening experience. Visualizing this scenario can help us empathize with the emu's plight. Despite being the enemies in this war, they were simply acting on instinct, trying to survive in a harsh environment. This perspective shift can deepen our appreciation for wildlife and the challenges they face due to human activities. The Great Emu War had significant long-term effects on Australian agriculture. The failure of the military intervention prompted the the government to rethink its approach to pest control and farm management. More sustainable and effective methods were eventually developed, including better fencing, strategic crop planning, and a more profound understanding of local wildlife behavior. The war also highlighted the importance of governmental support for farmers, leading to improved agricultural policies and practices. These changes helped to stabilize the farming community and mitigate future conflicts with wildlife, fostering a more balanced coexistence. Over the decades, the emu has become an enduring symbol of Australia, representing both the uniqueness and resilience of the country's wildlife. The Great Emu War has cemented the bird's place in Australian culture, celebrated in literature, art, and even as a mascot for sports teams. The emu's story continues to inspire new generations, reminding them of their heritage and the importance of preserving the natural world. The bird's victory in the Great Emu War is a testament to the strength and adaptability of wildlife, a narrative that resonates deeply with Australia's national identity. The Great Emu War has found its way into educational curricula, offering a rich case study for students. It teaches important lessons about history, ecology, and the interplay between human actions and natural consequences. By analyzing this event, students can learn about the importance of critical thinking, problem solving, and adaptability. Teachers use the story to engage students in discussions about environmental ethics, the impact of human intervention on ecosystems, and the necessity of finding sustainable solutions to agricultural and ecological challenges. The humor and absurdity of the war make it an engaging and memorable topic for learners of all ages. As we look at the Great Emu War, it's hard not to draw parallels with contemporary issues. Today, humans continue to grapple with the consequences of their actions on the environment. Whether it's invasive species, habitat destruction, or climate change, the lessons from the Emu War are more relevant than ever. Efforts to control nature often backfire, leading to unintended consequences. Just as the Australian soldiers discovered the hard way, modern society is learning that the solutions to environmental problems require a deep understanding of ecological systems and a commitment to sustainability. The Great Emu War serves as a cautionary tale, reminding us to think carefully about our actions and their impacts on the natural world. To keep our audience engaged, let's sprinkle in some lesser-known facts and anecdotes about the Great Emu War. For instance, did you know that at one point, a member of the Australian Parliament suggested that the emus should be classified as enemy combatants? This tongue-in-cheek remark highlights the absurdity of the situation and the level of frustration felt by those involved. Another interesting tidbit is that despite the military's failure, the emus themselves were not the real villains. It was the drought and lack of natural food sources that drove them to the wheat fields in the first place. This detail adds a layer of complexity to the story, illustrating the interconnectedness of environmental issues. Let's dive deeper into the human stories behind the Great Emu War. Farmers like Big Bill McLaughlin, who saw their fields decimated overnight, or soldiers who, after serving in World War I, found themselves in the bizarre position of waging war against birds. These personal stories add a layer of relatability and poignancy to the historical account. Imagine a soldier, trained in the brutal trenches of Europe, now tasked with shooting at emus from a moving truck. The contrast between these two experiences highlights the absurdity of the situation and the resilience of the human spirit in facing unexpected challenges. To make our story even more vivid, let's visualize the key moments. Picture a dusty plain in Western Australia, the heat shimmering in the air. Soldiers dressed in khaki line up their machine guns, while flocks of emus, tall and unyielding, rush across the fields. The sound of gunfire blends with the calls of the birds, creating a surreal battlefield scene. These vivid descriptions help transport the audience back in time, making the events of the Great Emu War come alive in their minds. Adding visuals, whether through illustrations, animations, or historical photos, can further enhance this storytelling experience. As we wrap up this incredible tale, let's reflect on the lessons learned from the Great Emu War. It teaches us about the unpredictability of nature, the limits of human control, and the importance of humility in the face of environmental challenges. It's a story that blends humor and tragedy, offering valuable insights while keeping us entertained. The Great Emu War remains a unique and unforgettable chapter in history. It's a testament to the resilience of both humans and emus, a reminder that sometimes the most outlandish stories hold the most profound truths. The Great Emu War of 1932 stands as a unique chapter in the annals of history. It is a story that defies expectations and invites both laughter and reflection. It reminds us that nature is a force to be reckoned with, and that sometimes even the best-laid plans can go hilariously awry. So next time you hear someone say, "You can't fight nature," remember the Great Emu War, a truly extraordinary episode where the Australian Army faced off against a feathered foe and lost. This battle, marked by its absurdity and unexpected outcomes, continues to serve as a poignant reminder of the unpredictable nature of life and the inherent challenges in controlling the environment. If you found this story as fascinating and bizarre as I did, be sure to subscribe to our channel for more incredible tales from history. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you heard of any other unusual battles or historical events? Let us know. We love hearing from you. Thank you for watching, stay curious, and until next time, keep exploring the incredible stories our world has to offer. And tell me in the comments, what do you think about this story?